All right, hello everybody. This is the Adafruit CircuitPython Weekly for January 8th, 2018, first of the year, first meeting of the year. It's been a week and a half since we had our last one because we had a holiday special on the off time. This meeting is normally at Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time. It happens through the voice chat on our Adafruit Discord, which you can get through adafru.it/discord is the URL. We're in there particularly in the text chat all week, so if you're listening to this off hours and want to bring up a topic that came up or participate next time, just let us know. In that channel, you can also find pinned messages in the top right of the latest or previous recordings of this as well. I'm going to try to get this going as a podcast so that people can kind of subscribe and listen at their leisure. But I haven't quite done that yet. So I expect to see that happen soon. The way this meeting is structured is we do 2 rounds through the people in the voice chat, giving everybody a chance to talk. First round is called Hug Reports, which is a chance for people to say thanks to everybody or anybody who's done something awesome that they want to highlight. And then the second round will be status updates, where you do brief overview of what you've done since the last meeting and what kind of direction you're headed in the week ahead. Lastly, we'll have a section which last time we kind of dubbed In the Weeds, which is meant to be in-depth discussion on any topic that we feel like should be discussed. And then on the flip side, we actually do start with a quick, I start with a quick overview of the state of CircuitPython. So let's get right into that. State of CircuitPython, these are stats for the last week, since the last meeting. 42 pull request merge, which is incredible. That includes both CircuitPython PRs and libraries. We had 9 authors and 5 reviewers across those 42 pull requests. In last week, we had 4 new PRs with 3 different authors, Brent, Sigafus, and myself. We've had 18 closed issues by 8 people, which is, again, really awesome. 6 opened by 4 people, so we're net positive. We have 8 open pull requests and 185 open issues. Most of those are under CircuitPython. 2.2 was released by Dan 6 days ago, so I'm taking away some of the status update. But downloads wise, we have 459 downloads total already, which is about a sixth of what 2.1 was last time we looked. It was just over 3,000 total. So doing really well there. Top 2 downloads are 181 for Circuit Playground Express and 100 for Trinket M0. Lastly, in terms of kind of linting all the libraries set up, we have 209 total repos. That includes forks and stuff of drivers, and 34 of them need some form of work. We've been doing a lot around linting, and there's 3 main repos that still need lint love. They're in the process. Yeah, so that's the high level. If you want to know more details, what I did is I made a gist of all of the notes that I take and posted that a link to that from the video that I posted on YouTube, and also linked to from the pins. So if you want more details on pull request issues, that sort of thing, and the library lint, you can go there and there's more details there. All those stats come from the Adabot script that we have. So if you just do github.com/adafruit/adabot, you'll see CircuitPython libraries.py is what generates these stats. Okay, so that is it for State of CircuitPython. Took me 2.5 minutes. So moving on to Hug Reports. This is a chance for all of us to say thank you to other people in our community for being awesome. I'll start and then run down the list as it is in the voice chat. And I know this seems kind of formal and it takes a bit of time sometimes, but the reason that I like doing this kind of round robin style is that it gives everybody a chance to talk. So in case you were wondering why I do it kind of this formal way, that's why. Okay, So first, I wanted to shout out to Mr. McWethy and Sigafus. Both are not here, but they've been doing an awesome job adding examples to repos. We kind of had this idea that all of our drivers should have an examples folder. So we have Adabot that now checks that, thanks to Mr. McWethy, and then they've been going through and actually checking things off that list. If people are interested in helping out with that, it's a super easy way to get going into contributing, because you can usually find examples on Learn Guides and stuff that you can use to put in the repo. That's CircuitPython issue 493. So if you want to look at that. Thank you to Tony DeCola for adding bundle checking to Adabot. So this is a check in Adabot that says like, hey, we know about this driver. Is this driver actually included in the bundle? On top of that, he went the extra mile and he did a lot of really good linting, commenting, and refactoring to Adabot, which it definitely needed. And so that's a huge improvement. So thanks, Tony, for that. Two more. Dan Halbert, I wanted to shout out to you. I knew that we had to merge all the stuff we had merged into 2.2 into master, but it wasn't even on my radar. And then you had a pull request for it. So I was super happy to see that. That really sets a foundation for us to take master and really get a 3.0 beta out and really start rocking that, which is good. And then lastly, I wanted to shout out to Summersoft, who's has been in the chat but not in the voice chat. They've been working on merging the Vagrant VM building setups between the M0 and the ASP8266 into one VM that can be used for both. And a couple of you, Jerry and Dan, I know have also been helping Summersoft with some issues doing that. So thank you everybody for that. And let's roll down the list. Tony, do you have any hug reports?
Hey, sorry, is my mic working?
I can hear you.
Cool. Yeah. Oh, no updates from me. Yeah. I'm
okay.
good.
All right, Bravo Delta. Any hug report?
Yeah, just one hug report. I want to shout out to the Antol or Nick Polarby.
Yep.
I think I pronounce his name, for getting a new build of the MU editor out right before Christmas, because I think if we have new users out there, there was a Windows bug that fixed.
Awesome.
That I'm sure made it great for any newer users. So
great.
Don't know if he'd hear it, but that's who I'd shouting out for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a weird time for him because he's in the UK, so he's not often in this meeting, but I'll point that out. I'll send him an email and be like, hey, you came up in our meeting. Here's a recording.
Yeah, I've been talking to him via emails a little bit about the MU editor and testing it and reviewing his code changes. So
awesome. Well, thank you for doing that. I didn't even realize that was happening.
Yep.
Sweet. Brent, do you have anything? I don't know if you have a mic. Yeah, he's sitting in the factory. Hug report to Tony for Waveform's tone help. Kattni and Mr. McWethy for reviewing the Metro X circs code. Experimental Metro stuff. So thanks to them. I'll just copy and paste that into the notes. C. Grover?
Yeah, I've got a repeat hug report. Dan and Kattni gave me a big help and a breakthrough on libraries and GitHub. Appreciate that. Dan and the community also helped me look for some books that are helping me with the conceptual side of understanding Python. And Lady Ada gave me a Pomodoro timer script that I used, and I want to thank her for that. It helped repair some relationships in my family for me to show up to family events. And she also produced an AVR program that I'm looking forward to using.
Yeah, I saw that as well. I've been meaning to look into that. I think she's really interested in doing development tool programming with Python because it's so accessible. So that's very exciting. All right, Dan?
I'd like to thank Scott for continuing all the library bundle automation work, because that's really worked out really well. And then Hatney and Lemore for working on tap detection really hard just before 2.2 had to come out. So that accelerated that coming out, and it's in really good shape right now. And also thanks to Jerry for continuing to test every time we have a release of one thing or another, because he always finds something, and it's very helpful.
Yeah, totally.
All right.
Thanks, Dan. Jerry?
Thanks to Dan for producing all those releases to test. They're fun. And a big thank you to Radomir, who's not here, for spending a lot of time with me last weekend trying to help understand I2C bit banging on the ESP8266, and both banging our heads against the CCS 811 sensor. I think I learned a lot. I also learned that it's not my favorite sensor, but but I really appreciated his patience and help getting it going.
Awesome.
Working with it.
Great. Katney.
Yeah, I want to hug report Jerry for sending me a Metro Wing and all the bits to put it together. I'm super excited about that.
And credit to Sedacious for designing it too.
Yes. That it's really nice. I'm very happy with it. I want to give a hug report to Radomir and I believe Summersoft. I was working on reviewing the linting libraries and ran into issues, and they helped me figure those out. So I wasn't spending hours staring at those. I want to give a hug report to Tony for helping me also with a linting library to realize that I had a whole set of LEDs soldered on backwards, and that's why they weren't working. I probably never would have figured that out. And to Dan for helping me out, and also to Scott for just being awesome and being there when I needed help with other stuff. Also, shout out to Wolf, who has been helping me behind the scenes quite a lot whenever it is that I run into issues, and he's around. So, awesome. Thank you.
Woo, I'm keeping up. Summersoft? You're next. Typing. Tanute, myself, for help on UID and Vagrant, and for his earlier thanks to Dan Halbert and Jerry N. Thanks to Dan Halbert and Jerry N for troubleshooting ESP Vagrant. Lastly, group hug. Perfect. All right, that's everybody. So thanks for making it. Let's keep the ball rolling and talk about status updates. Trying to take time codes. For myself, it's a new week. Trying to get back into the swing of things a little bit. Want to wrap up the servo stuff I did. I published Featherwing and motor libraries. Featherwing's role is to do all of the initialization for the motor Featherwing in particular, using the PCA 9685 driver, which I have a pull request for that does all the linting, and then also using the new motor library that I introduced. The motor library is meant to be used with any motor driver, not just the PCA 9685. I checked those in directly to repos. If people, if that's interesting to you, please go look at both the motor and the Featherwing repos directly. There's no PRs for that. But there's also the PCA 9685 PR. I think Katney looked at it, but we haven't circled back to exchange feedback. And then there's a couple of guides that need to be updated along with that as well. So I'm aware of that, and that'll happen before it gets released. Go ahead.
Yeah, on that one, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I noticed it's named Featherwing. And is it only for motor controller type stuff, or is it because there are a bunch of featherwing? And I just found that name confusing.
Yeah, so I was thinking about it. The vision I have for it is that it's for all of the feather wings that are complicated enough that they could use something to do initialization for it. Kattni and I were debating whether it should be a bunch of small libraries, one per feather wing, or whether we should just have one library for all of the feather wings, like one package for all the feather wings. So I went with the package approach. If people disagree, we can always change it. But the goal is to be kind of like a high level initialization object, kind of like the Circuit Playground Express.
Okay, not just limited to motor controller type things.
Correct. It's for any featherwing where it's like a bunch of boilerplate to get it going, whereas we actually know like all the pinouts and stuff. We could be a lot smarter. We could put stuff in there.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But just double checking on the intent. That's fine. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm going to work on getting that in, and then I also have to do the B&O 055, which I linted, but I broke a bunch of stuff, so I've got to go back and follow up with that. So this week I'm really trying to wrap up the lint stuff so that next week can get on to 3.0. I know that's kind of been my status for like the last 3 weeks, where I'm trying to get done with this lint stuff and move on to 3.0, but hasn't happened yet, but it'll happen soon. So that's me. Tony?
Hey, let's see. So yeah, been a couple weeks with the holidays. Let's see, what did we do? A few weeks back, did the thermal printer, created a library for that. Also, verified some of the 9DOFs a while back, the LSM 9DSO and 9DS1, and then the FXAS 2100-2C. I think I got the name right. Yeah. Basically, it's the NXP 9DOF. Anyways, those are validated a few weeks ago, and then last week did the I think that was 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago did the DRV 2605 haptic feedback motor driver BCNL 4010, which is a little distance sensor. Last week did what did we do last week? Oh man, I'm like completely blanking out. That's right. Right. Yeah, I've did AdaBot. I've been looking a bunch at the RFM 69. It's the packet radio, the 900 megahertz or 600, I think, also in the Europe version. But yeah, so I'm looking at that one. It's interesting, unfortunately, because all the libraries use interrupts. But I think we can still get some basic usage out of it. Also updated the piezo guide with simple I/O usage. The servo guide, I'm going to wait for your servo library updates because it looks really nice as just a general servo wrapper.
Sweet.
That's it. And then yeah, so this week I'm looking at the RFM 69 still, and then the DS18B20, the one-wire temperature sensors. I'll update our guide to show the CircuitPython usage for that. I think Carter did a library for that. It's pretty good. So
that's awesome. Keep rocking, dude. Bravo Delta, you have anything?
Yeah, I was working on the Playground Color Sense guide and get Kattni to review it again, and then don't really have anything planned yet. I'm just going to look and see what needed to be done or what I could find that looked interesting.
What was the guide?
It was for a color sensor on the Circuit Playground Express.
Yep.
It basically took the what Tony did for the Arduino and converted it over to using CircuitPython.
Cool.
And Kattni wanted to write a guide on it.
Awesome. That'll be good. Guides are good. Brent, did you beat me to it? Kattni and Mr. McWethy, thanks again. Are reviewing code for the Metro X CircuitPython edition guide. Tone got reworked in simple IO bit waveforms, has a square wave now, and or should there's a PR. Yeah, I saw that. That was in the list of open PRs, so I need to go through that list and make sure that I got everything up to date. For those of you who are wondering why you didn't hear Brent, he put it in the text chat, so you can watch the video on YouTube to see that later. I also copied it into the notes also. C. Grover?
Yeah, project status. The string car was out in the snow playing this weekend, and I think I posted a couple of photos and the video of that.
I need to look that up, yeah.
The significant thing there was that I was able to create a library that abstracts the main.py code pretty significantly, so that the folks that I have that are using the string car that don't really know very much about Python don't have to deal with pin settings, and they don't have to deal with initialization or anything like that. So they just start dealing with adjusting a few parameters and learning a little bit about the logic of how the car works. So that worked perfectly, and I'm pretty happy with that. Now I just need to get a little deeper into how to make libraries work the right way under Python, understanding the object orientation approach rather than just kind of a procedural approach. But I'm getting there. The books arrived today.
Okay, do you have a repository for all that?
Yeah, that's the other good news, is I finally did establish a repository, and when I update it, I'll post that.
Okay, please do. I'd love to put that in the notes too, if you want to just post it now.
Yeah, I looked through your motor code too, and because I've done a lot with DC motors, both in the Arduino and now in Python, and I liked your approach to that, by the way.
Sweet. Good. Tell me if you don't. The sooner the better.
You'll be one of the first to know.
All right, perfect. And thanks for reviewing that. That's really helpful. Dan.
So I got the 2.2 release out, as everybody saw, and then merged to 3.0 as Scott mentioned already. And there have been a bunch of support issues. Oh, also there's some issue with a new tool chain that was messing up the M4 builds on the 3.0 branch. So I stared at assembly language for a couple of days, and I figured out what was going on there. And then also in terms of support stuff, there were some issues with the SSD 1306 library for old boards that have separate reset pins, and also Old Crow, who does all the synthesizer stuff on Show and Tell, found that the Feather M0 Express was actually not included properly in the latest Windows 7 driver bundle. So there's a request in to fix that right now, and cool. That's sort of been cleaned up a little bit as well. So with a lot of support, as we might expect, because a lot of people are using their new or holiday presents.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what C. Scott's doing.
Yeah,
aka Old Crow is like notorious for show and tell synthesizer stuff. So I'm really excited to see the modules that he's making. All right.
All right. That's it. Yeah.
Sweet. Thanks, Dan. Jerry.
Mostly just been testing things and what it can break, cause trouble with. So that's been fun. Dan, just a heads up. I just built 2 new versions of the with CircuitPython 3 with the new load, and they do work. But what I found is the first time I load them, when I copy the new image on, and I reboot, it goes to safe mode. But then if I power cycle the board, it comes up and works fine. But the first boot after just loading the image, and it came up to REPL, and then I did a Control D, and it went to safe mode. So I don't know why, but
I thought I saw that, but I wasn't sure. So
it went away.
I thought it was a mistake on my part. So that's probably just that the canary word wasn't set properly.
Is that on M0 or M4?
Both.
Oh, okay. Great.
I got it on M4, on the M4 Express, and on the Trinket. So,
okay.
And yeah, just playing with the Trinket now with under Trinket.
Or we can detect whether the power thing was from scratch. I'm not sure if we can detect that or not, but if we can,
we can.
Yeah, then we can just ignore what's in the canary word to begin with.
Okay. So other than that, just trying to think of what else. Again, a lot of filling around with the the ESP8266 and with the bitbang IO both on both. I was playing with it on both the M0s and on the ESP8266, trying to learn something about it, and yeah, learned a lot, but didn't really accomplish much. But it was a good exercise.
I was gonna say learning stuff is accomplishing something.
Oh yes, it was very very productive for me. Not so much for actually getting much useful out of the thing, but yeah. So that's
Awesome.
about it. Thanks.
Thanks for all the testing, Jerry. It's super helpful.
Oh, it's fun.
You shouldn't write that off as not very productive, because it's super helpful.
Thanks.
Kattni.
Yeah, so time's kind of running together. In the last couple weeks, the gist of what we did was we slogged through figuring out what was going on with LAS3DH, the accelerometer, and as Lamore pointed out, apparently it's just designed badly, which certainly made the hours I spent fighting with it make me feel a lot better about those.
Mm-hmm.
But we figured it out. We got it to do what we wanted. We got tap detection working. We got it pushed into so that we could put 2.2 out, since that was blocking it. I worked on updating some guides. The Gemma guide now has the Welcome to CircuitPython guide mirrored into it, so it has its own install quick start, just like Trinket and non-blocking, just like Trinket, and the demos are moved into like a separate spot. So basically you go through, you learn how to work with your board, and then you do the examples. And we're going to be redoing CPX like that. I'm going to be updating Metro.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably what I'm going to be doing in the next couple weeks. I did a lot of testing on the linting libraries. Got a lot of those merged and releases done so that they can get into the bundle. And I'm preparing to do a presentation tomorrow night on CircuitPython.
Ooh.
Yeah. Looking forward to that. I have a few trinkets to give away.
Do you want to say what time and where it is in case?
Sure. It's 6:30 p.m. at the Farmington Hills Library in Farmington Hills, Michigan.
6:30 p.m. Farmington Hills Library.
Yeah. And it's a Michigan user group meeting. But I'm going to be doing a presentation on CircuitPython, so I'm looking forward to that. I got a few demos set up and basically be walking through the guide that I wrote, since it's essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that. I looked at your pull request. I just had some questions about it before actually reviewing it. But we can talk about that later. I already brought that up with you.
Yep.
And I've started reviewing the Metro guide, like Brent pointed out. And yeah, so I guess that's what I've been doing. So the next week or so is going to be, I think, probably testing more libraries, finishing up the rest of the Feather, the Metro, and the CPX guides, so that they're all, everybody's mirrored across the board, and all the info is in all of the things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably where I'm at.
That's awesome. Great work.
Thank you.
Summersoft? Summersoft says in chat, none really, but then goes on to explain a lot. NRF board should be here this week, so I can start working on the UID edition on that. Summersoft was working on adding accessing the unique identifier on every microcontroller. Working on that. VEML6070 is also showing up this week, giving a library a go for that. And rotary encoder, though I don't have an M4, so we'll see. Insert obligatory curse you ESP vagrant windows. Have a fork/branch for combining the ESP and SAMD vagrants are VMs, virtual machines that can be used. for building CircuitPython. Working on updating the docs. Will add some notes on my current problem. Think that's it. Thanks, Summersoft. Great. So that's through everybody. We didn't get anybody else new jumping in. So we can roll right into the weeds. So why don't we just say, I wanted to talk a little bit about CircuitPython in 2018 post, get some feedback on that. Any other topics people want to have for discussion? That's a deafening no. Okay, so the one thing I wanted to talk about is, I don't know, I posted it a couple days ago, but I want to do a blog post about what CircuitPython, kind of what our focus will be for 2018. I put it in the chat if people want to pull it up. It was just like a course rough draft. The original way I was thinking is that it would be like kind of this overview of, like, in general, like, I'm trying to think of CircuitPython more broadly than I did at the start of last year. Last year it was really just like this core coding project, right? Like, I'm very much an engineer, so I think about what needs to be implemented and where we're going with implementation. Luckily, last year we also realized pretty quickly that building community was part of this project as well, and that's why everybody's here now, which is really great. But I wanted to think, I want the project to be thought of more broadly than just those two things. I want us to think about it kind of as we have, but be more explicit about it, where that also includes tools and libraries and tutorials and the hardware that comes with it. So that's kind of what this first section was all about. And then I was thinking that I would break it down and really kind of recap in terms of each of those veins, what happened in 2017 and kind of what I expect to see happen in 2018. But I had more trouble doing those specific breakouts. So kind of the feedback I'm looking for is, like, do you think it would be helpful for me to go through these specific breakdowns by kind of theme or aspect, or should I just do this first part plus maybe the conclusion and just do that as a blog post? So what do you think?
I mean, I think the breakdown is more important just to us working on it. We talk about it constantly.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, in Discord and at these weeklies and things like that. And I don't know that it's, especially if you're struggling with it, like, I don't know if it's something that you really need to contain in the blog post.
Yeah.
You know, we already, like, it's already seen that way. We're already doing it that way. And if people have questions about it, they can come to us and we can talk about it. I wouldn't, basically, like you've told me a million times, don't let it block you. You know, if it's not working, then don't try to force yourself through it, because it's probably not going to end up quite saying what you want anyway if you're just forcing yourself to write something.
Yeah, I guess maybe what the only thing that's missing is, like, I want to, like, have a way to say, like, if you want to be more involved, check out Discord and the forums, and maybe if I just add a little bit to that, then that's enough.
I think so. I mean, and there's the welcome to the community guide, there's the welcome to CircuitPython guide, and there's so you've got resources to pull from in terms of, like, saying, like, here's a good place to go if you want to get started, here's a good thing to help you get started. Because you've also told me don't duplicate work if you don't have to.
Yeah.
I agree that having some sort of jumping point would be good, because that way, if you're not including all the stuff you just talked about, you're including a way to get to that stuff.
Right.
Which would be, Discord and the forums and so on, as in, like, to us. Find a way to get to us.
Yeah. Brent says he thought it was really good, but be more explicit about what you want to see. And that was kind of why I was thinking I would do more explicit sections of, like, continuing to build community and giving more people in the community more I could say power, but not power, but like more responsibility, I guess is what I would say. And then like tools would be like pointing at Mu and Thonny and Adabot and CircuitPython build tools and that stuff. Libraries would be like all the drivers. Hardware would be M4, NRF52, that sort of thing. So,
do you just want help writing it then? Is I guess another thing I would offer.
I don't know. I think I'm also struggling with the fact that it's just really long. Like it will end up being really long, and like it's hard for people to get through something that's really long as well. So maybe there's just like little blurbs I could put in rather than larger things.
I was sort of missing what the intent was of the document you're trying to produce. I went out and reviewed it and added a couple comments to it.
Yeah,
I think it's good for bringing people out of the woodwork who may not be, they may be too shy to get involved in the community, and that may be who you want to write to with this. But I think you need to pick an audience, and then I think that it will naturally then coalesce around what you want to say to that audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, related to that, it almost kind of sounds like, you want to form it into a vision document that says, this is where we want to go with this.
Right.
And kind of high level thing could just be, this will be the primary platform for Adafruit hardware going forward. So like in the past, whenever we build a breakout board, there'd be Arduino code and Arduino examples and things. And that stuff's not going away, but we think that CircuitPython is going to be at that same level to say that, whenever new Adafruit hardware comes out, here's CircuitPython. That's kind of the first class way that we want to publish this and show people how to use it. So that might be kind of a bigger overarching kind of goal in 2018 to look at is how do you move toward, well, first of all, I guess the question is like, is that the goal? And then the second question is just like, okay, how do you get to that kind of world? So to get there, you need to have all the same ecosystem as Arduino. So get the tooling up to the same kind of standards, get the libraries up to the same kind of standards, support a lot of the same kind of hardware and things like that. So that would be my kind of thought, is just really focus on what is that vision to consolidate things and make it easy. So it's like, that's the one takeaway from someone who reads this is like, oh, that's what Adafruit's doing in 2018 with CircuitPython. Like they want this to be their primary platform.
Yeah. I think that is what I'm going for, like vision document, but I do think it's also broader than Adafruit specific necessarily.
I would suggest then that you need that first section, or you need a first section that has the core info. That has, if you were to write a short blog post, what would that short blog post be? Boom, put that in the beginning. Right. Because for the people who aren't going to read the whole thing, you just at least want to get your point said. Then you can break it down, and there's plenty of people who are going to read through the whole thing, but for those few that don't, you've got a good intro.
I would reverse that, but yeah.
I don't think so. I mean, I really think there's a lot of people who are very interested in this. I don't think you're writing to no one if you actually explicitly explain all this. But I just think that it would probably be useful to just have like a abstract essentially of your vision document, and have that at the beginning.
Right. And
that way you're covering both situations. You've got your people who just read the first part, and you've got people who go, okay, awesome, I want to know what goes on here and what happens.
Yeah, the specifics of it.
For hardware also, you might want to think about ESP32 and putting that down, because I'm seeing a lot more kind of discussion in the maker world about it. Like I've seen a few blog posts about people doing stuff with MicroPython on it. So I think in 2018, that thing might start to kind of come around as the next interesting platform.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's merged upstream too. Like somebody asked it on the forums, and it's merged upstream. So with 4X, when we pull from upstream again, we'll probably pick it up, and you and I should probably talk a little more maybe on Wednesday about it, because I think it would be really awesome if we actually did new hardware for it, so that we could do all the USB stuff as well.
Right. Yeah. To support that. Well, and that could be an interesting thing to maybe think about in this, vision document too. Is like, what is the workflow for? Well, no, I wouldn't even say like workflow, but like what is an interesting thing that CircuitPython does, that nothing else does,
right?
And maybe why we're focusing on that. And so something like, USB storage based kind of editing.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing to think about too is with the NRF52, and maybe not for the blog post, but just how do you consolidate? Because I think we're kind of moving towards, at least initially, it'll be a bifurcated kind of thing where you've got with the SAMD, the USB storage for editing files. But when the NRF52 comes around, I think right now K-Town's just using AMPI to send data to it. So, you don't have that USB thing yet. But that might be something to think about for this next year is like, do we want to, do we live in a world where like some chips have, the AMPI style, you send the file to it through serial versus other chips that support it can do the file-based editing?
Right.
Or do we just kind of say like, here's the vision for CircuitPython, board, we aspire to support this file-based system.
Right.
And then, where the hardware doesn't support it, we look at ways we're going to, maybe try and shoehorn that in or make it work or, add like extra hardware that can add that kind of capability.
Right. Yeah, I think having the CircuitPy drive is core to what people think of as it. Like, there's the people that pick up an ESP8266 and they're like, it's not showing up as a drive.
Right. Yeah. And so that could be an interesting thing with CircuitPython is like, that's kind of the, one of the, it's got this consistent editing story.
Right.
And so, yeah. So how do you maybe support that? And it might even be worth like looking back at, do we do an ESP8266 that supports something like that? Like throw a SAMD21 in front of it or something interesting.
Right. Yeah, I think it's worth thinking about. The reason I didn't really touch on it here is because I know Bluetooth is kind of coming. Like K-Town's working on it already, and whenever the NRF52840 comes out, which is the NRF52 which has USB support in it, like then we'll do a chip with that as well. So I honestly don't know if we'd hit ESP32 this year because like the M4 will take us probably into the summer, and then NRF52 is probably after that, and that's into the fall. Like,
I definitely keep in the back of the mind because it feels like the chip is starting to get a little bit of momentum. Like I've seen a few blog posts, with people and it's hitting that sweeter spot of having more memory.
Yep.
And so people are starting to do kind of more interesting. Like I saw some web developers, like learning about Python and using ESP32 to do some web scraping stuff, and they were like really gung ho about it. So
yeah, and I think you're right. I think it's definitely that thing that comes after M4 and NR52. It's just a question of like exactly what that timing is, and hardware-wise, that's up to Lamore, right?
Say like, okay, this is when we expect it to happen, but it's kind of like maybe that's just something to mention on the horizon, like platforms that we're thinking about. So
it's on our radar. It's beyond,
I think there's a core piece that may be missing from most of the documentation and posts and things that I've read, and that is, why is it that Adafruit is going to CircuitPython at this time, and what's your level of commitment to that? I think you're sort of talking about the engineering angle of we'll support this, we'll support that, and we're here to do the most popular stuff and to make things very transparent for you. But I think I would wonder, well, how committed is Adafruit to this? And why are they doing it? And what I've read into it is the reason I started buying M0 stuff a long time ago because of the promise of CircuitPython, because I saw in that independence from Arduino.
You don't need us to tell you that.
Yeah, I know, but I'm thinking there are a lot of people out there that want to know, well, I mean, that was my reason for doing it, but there are a lot of people out there that are thinking about getting into CircuitPython that are wondering, well, how long will my project be supported into the future? And is this a choice that I want to make, or do I just stick with Arduino for now because it's so established?
Right.
And I don't think you need to go into the big dissertation that I just did about it, but I think making a statement and a commitment to that helps cement that vision and helps people make a decision about it.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think the answer, at least that I've kind of given, or the way I think about it is, Arduino kind of solved the hardware problem in that it made it easy so that if you're a teacher that wants to teach like physical computing, no longer do you have to explain like, okay, here's how you design a board that has this processor and here's how you get it manufactured. No, you just buy this board off the shelf, install some of this software, and they've greatly simplified all the tool chains. They hide all that complexity of GCC and all that fun stuff, and make embedded development, more accessible to people. And then I kind of view MicroPython and CircuitPython as the next step beyond that, because we've had Arduino for about 10 years or so now, and we've kind of started to see that like it's amazing to get started with, but there still is this kind of difficulty, especially with people brand new to programming, just getting past this hump of getting the software, understanding libraries. It's only desktop software. The language itself, although it's really nice and simple, there's still some quirks of dealing with C++ and that type of a language. So the cool thing and the promise with Python is like, okay, we're using a different programming language that has a lot more background and accessibility for beginners. So I view it as the next step where Arduino solved the hardware problem, MicroPython and CircuitPython, I don't want to say solve, but at least maybe simplify the software side of it even more so that it just opens up embedded and making and a lot of these projects to a lot more people that would have been turned off in the past. And so I think maybe a couple ways it does it is like simplifying just the running of code. Like you've got the interactive REPL, and then you've also got things like the USB file editing. And then the language itself is just a little bit simpler. And, you could probably argue all day whether it's better or worse. I don't want to say one way or the other, but it's definitely has a longer history of new people learning languages with Python, I'd say. Or at least they seem to be more successful with Python versus like C or C++.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my view. I guess maybe condensing that down into something a little bit more succinct is probably
for new programmers. Not, I mean, going to C and C++ as your first languages is not an easy task.
No, I think you bring up a really good point there, that it was a necessary step. Arduino was a necessary step to get something into the education market. What I'm getting at is a little bit less about the what and getting into more the why. As a customer, why do I feel good about trusting Adafruit to come up with a new development environment for me? And how can I feel good about that?
Well, because I mean, Adafruit's got the experience in Arduino. You look at the number of libraries out there, and you can say, but they saw that there's an inhibitor for people who maybe weren't the experienced programmers or had a lot of electronics experience. When you first get the Arduino, it is kind of intimidating to say, "Oh, I got to connect all these wires." Where with Adafruit, I love that you can just go in with the Circuit Playground, no wiring required, and start flashing lights, playing songs, doing all that kind of things.
Yeah, no special IDE involved either.
Yeah, I mean, that's great that there's no special IDE.
But I think for people first coming into this, they're trying to choose between Arduino and CircuitPython or maybe some other environment to program in. I think they're willing to trust Adafruit, but I think Adafruit needs to make a statement that says, the team needs to make a statement that, we're here to stay, first of all, and here's why we're getting into this, because we want to make this easier for you. We want to allow you to get that extra level of abstraction so you can learn things more quickly.
The way I think of it in a sentence is make it simple for the beginner, but powerful enough for the experienced person.
Yeah, very extensible.
Yeah, I think, I have more insight into what the commitment level is because I regularly talk to Phil and Lamore, but for everyone else, like, to me, the biggest thing that showed their commitment was the fact that they hired me full time. And I'm not cheap. And then like in August or so, Dan got hired full time by them as well as a second full time developer. And he's also not cheap. So I think that's one way to see what our commitment level is that they're actively paying multiple people. Like Tony is paid full-time as well, and Katney's being paid near full-time. Like they're actively growing their investment in CircuitPython, and there's a couple. I think you all nailed the fact that it's super easy, and I think Tony deserves the credit. Like before I was even involved to to be the one to say like, look, MicroPython is this leap forward in usability when it comes to beginning programming. I think Tony deserves credit for seeing that insight. So I think that is true, and I think that is one of the reasons we would like to do that. But I think you could also take it from the business side of like Adafruit's business model is also selling hardware to beginners, right? So it's in Adafruit's best interest to create something that's great for beginners.
And I think you did just did an excellent job of explaining why. And I don't think it would hurt to put that down in your vision for what's in 2018 is to say we're sticking to this and this is why.
All right. Well, I'll have to go back and listen to it again then.
You did a great job.
I think one other thing that happened, which is historical and not so true anymore, but Arduino was in trouble from a commercial point of view, sort of around the time when Feathers were starting to get it worked on and things like that. So the motivation, it's part of the motivation, yes, was we need a better, easier platform to use. And also it was, we don't want to be dependent on a platform that is becoming shaky from an organizational point of view. And that looked like what was happening with Arduino. Mm-hmm. All right. So, I mean, if Arduino had been very strong, they might themselves have moved into something like MicroPython or something like that, or MakeCode or something. And they did not because they were having a lot of organizational commercial issues. And so part of what Adafruit did was say we have to do our own thing. We can't be dependent now there are all these other things that have to do with that. And I'm not sure you would put that in that article, but that is part of what the business reason was at the time, I'm sure too. So
yeah. So I'll think about that. I think that's interesting. I think it's like there's two aspects to it of like, why is Adafruit able to pay for it? Like clearly they're investing in it from all the people that we're paying and giving hardware to, but also like, why are we doing that? And so we can touch on that.
Yeah, I don't think the level of investment is as interesting as the level of commitment. I think that's a different thing. The corporate commitment is to say, we really what we want to do is we want to bring education to our community.
Right.
And we think the best way the community can be served is by having something that's stable, something that we're willing to put some effort into and establish products and software and a support mechanism. And,
right.
And that's, I think if you get down to the numbers of investment, that kind of dehumanizes it. And to me, I was afraid of the Arduino thing collapsing, and that's why I started buying M0s a long time ago. Mm-hmm. But the point there is that I just want some reassurance that I made a good decision. And I don't think telling me you've invested in a number of people is impressive to me as the fact that you've spoken your commitment.
Yeah.
Just one other comment too is I think it's really important to, there is a huge part of this is bringing new people in and getting and training, especially making it easier for beginners. And that's really great. And it's a lot of fun to help people and to see people get excited and try stuff. Mm-hmm. But I also think there's a, I really like it because I can work at it at all sorts of different levels. I can just, I can do the cut and paste stuff and make lights blink and make sensors work with, just by copying a few code files. But right. I also can get down and start, and really, try experimenting. And, I can download the source code. I can start poking and playing with that. And I can, really, it really is extensible, as it was said. And I think, we want to make sure people are aware of that it's not limited, just to people doing beginner things.
Right.
And that's one of the frustrations I run into is that some of the platforms like the M0s really are limited.
Yeah.
And so, the future of it really will be with the M4s and I think the NRF52s. And you know, for the person who really wants to get down into making things with this and going a lot further, because you know the resources on the M0s is really not there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a hard line for me to walk, because I like to be very focused on improving things for beginners. But that doesn't mean that I want to rule it out for the project. I just want to rule it out for my time, right? Like, I'd rather spend my time helping somebody else create more advanced stuff, or doing more beginner focused stuff on my end, than the advanced, like, let's do interrupts and that sort of stuff. Does that make any sense?
I think there's more leverage. I mean, the market, the point of Adafruit is to have a continuum from the beginner to the more advanced, but
right.
There are far more beginners, and there always will be, than the number of people who have particularly advanced projects to do. So we really have to cater to the beginner, or that's where the excitement is in terms of mass movement.
I think you're doing a great job too of the people who want advanced stuff. Is, you know, they're welcome to bring it in. Bring it on. So, and I think that's been really encouraged in this group, you know, and they shouldn't shy away from that. When somebody says, "Why aren't there interrupts?" and they say, "Well, because you haven't written it yet."
Yeah, so. Yeah, I think that is something that you know, we did really well over the last year, is really taking the time, like being willing to take the time to onboard people, and get people over their hurdles, just like we're talking about this blog post I want to do. Is like, I think we should continue to recognize the benefit in getting more people on board. So I think that's valuable regardless of what somebody wants to do. Thanks, Tony.
Bye, Tony.
But yeah, so I think that's always important, but I also personally like to focus on beginner stuff, because I think beginner stuff is also some stuff that benefits the advanced users. By saying I want to focus on the beginner doesn't mean I want to ignore the advanced user, because I think that I forget who I was talking to, but I think assistive tech is the same way. Like Bill from AT Makers does a lot of assistive tech, and time after time, it's assistive tech. They create things for people who need that assistance, but in the end, they end up helping everybody because they make something better overall. And so I think that's why I'm okay saying we should focus on beginners, is because I think things like the auto reload stuff that CircuitPython does is better for both beginners and advanced users.
I also think that we come into the situation where we write something, we design something, we put it out there. You and I have tested it, Dan's tested it, Jerry's probably tested it, you know, but we now have our 4 people who've tested it. All of us, have different environments, but we're not the target audience.
Yeah.
And when we get new people coming in and running this stuff, we immediately get feedback, you know, why is this written like this? Why doesn't this do this? And this is all stuff we obviously didn't think of when we were doing it. And so bringing more people in expands our viewpoint, because we can only view it through our own eyes in so many ways. And getting feedback from other people is huge. And we're getting feedback both from very advanced people and very beginner people. And all of it has just been immensely helpful.
Right.
I think in my project, by focusing on the beginner, the people that I have to support with this, forces me to think more advanced about how to abstract things to make it work. So I think what you're saying is that you're doing this simultaneous excellence thing. You're both focusing on the beginner, and you're trying to build things that beginners can step up to, but that takes a lot of advanced skills to do, and you're relying on the community to help you with those advanced skills to make it simpler for the beginner.
Or to validate it. And to validate, like, there's this kind of universal design, like for can openers or something like that. Can you make a can opener that can be used by somebody who's in their 20s and is a child and is 70 years old and doesn't have the strength anymore or something? And I think that's part of what I think that Scott was meaning when that we were doing. It benefits both.
Right.
If you do take a universal design approach.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you all for this discussion. I'll keep leaving this doc up as I work on it. I think I'll maybe do another pass over it today sometime. I don't know. I'll have to keep thinking about it. But yeah, I think having this discussion is good, and I'm glad that we're all on the same page. I think we have been in general, and we're working like crazy, and we're moving like super fast. M4s are coming, which is good. So getting back to 3X and getting some hardware out into people's hands is going to be awesome. So 2018 is going to be exciting. I think, obviously I can't predict everything that's going to happen, but I think it's just going to keep growing. Like, looking back at 2017 to realize that, like, Bravo Delta pointed out, I think that we released the beta on like early January of last year, which was internally for us, like between Tony and Lamore and Phil and I, like that was the point where we said, are we going to be a fork, and do we want to be clear that we're not like we don't want to be confused with MicroPython. Like we want to give them credit, but we also want to be separate. That was a huge thing for us that led to welcome to Adafruit CircuitPython beta, January 9th. So yeah, tomorrow will be our first birthday party, which is super exciting. And I guess the high level also for me was just that, you know, we grew like crazy in 2017, going from just a few people to a lot more people on the outskirts, plus a number of more core people now, which is really exciting. And I think 2018, we're just going to continue to see that. I think we're just going to grow, which is awesome. So that's kind of what I was trying to get across, and I was trying to get that across, and then I was also trying to get across this idea that, like, it's not just the code that we're working on. We're working on all of these different aspects all at once. So I'll keep thinking about that. Anything else that folks want to talk about?
You made a comment, the M4 coming out, but don't let the M0 get forgotten. You know what I mean? That could be...
Yeah, I totally, like, I'm... Yes. Knowing that...
When I first came in, it seemed like everybody had an M4, and I'm like, well, I'm trying to struggle here through an M0. And anyway.
No, you're right, and you should continue to say that, because we've sold over 10,000 Circuit Playground Expresses, and we're making like 10,000 more.
Cool.
So.
Well, you probably sold a lot of Trinket M0s by now, too.
Yeah, we have.
Gave away a lot, too.
I've got 5 pages of code that says that the M0 can do pretty good for at least beginning projects like mine. Yeah,
so I think, you know, we should continue to focus on that. Maybe not. We should continue to support it well, and continue to test on it. What did you say, Bravo?
I said I think you do well.
Yeah, but I think you're right. I think you're right to say that, like, as we do more M4 stuff, we need to be careful and make sure that we're not regressing on the M0. And in fact, we should still work to get the M0 like more memory efficient and things like that.
Well, I mean, for an example, I know that the some of the sound code, or the one that I think Kenny worked on it, and Dan, that it was working great on the M4, and so like, well, yeah, but it's not working on M0, and he went back and said, okay, here we go, and figured out what was wrong and got it working.
Yeah. Yeah, the sound stuff is just like, it's been awesome that Dan's picked that up because I just had a terrible time getting it going myself. So that was in need of love. I think in general, that's kind of how it's worked out, is that I come along and I do very quick, like, coarse code of stuff, and then Dan comes along and other folks come along like Kattni and Jerry and figure out that it's broken, and then we refine it, or Dan refines it. So it works really well, and I'm glad that Dan's okay fixing my code.
You write great code. I would not say it was coarse. I would say it's very detailed.
I think Pulse.io needs a little bit of love too. I don't think the circular buffer is working quite right. But
but that's what we have people testing it, which is great. Yeah.
Yep.
I said something earlier that I think I may have misstated what I meant. Was I think the M0s are wonderful platforms to work with, and like the Trinket is really fun, and I think there's a tremendous capability, and I think that what C. Grover has been doing with it, these are incredible things, and you can do a tremendous amount. But I think people have to be careful with their expectations when they start slapping, SSD 1306s on it and SD cards, and then you want to know, why they can't run multiple drivers.
Right.
But if you're just writing code to twiddle some, interfaces and do lots and lots of basic things with them, they're great tools. And I think, people have to just be a little careful about their expectations of what they can do with them.
Yeah, I think some people have expected more than what they should at this point. But just in the last 2 months I've been here, I've seen it improve immensely from when I first started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think some of that is just us figuring out how to message what you should expect to be able to do, right? Like on the non-express M0s, what do we expect you to be able to do? On the M0 expresses, what do we expect you to do? And then how does the M4 differentiate itself from that? Like that's something we can improve on. Sorry, I'm just writing that down. All right, gonna wrap up. So this was the Adafruit CircuitPython Weekly for January 8th, 2018. If you're interested in participating, it's open to everybody on our Discord, which is adafru.it/Discord. We're there all week if you want to chat with anybody you heard here. We'd love more participation. People come along helping out. This will be posted on YouTube and linked to from that channel as well. We'll have a podcast soon when I get around to it, in the next week, hopefully. And is there anything else I normally say? Usually we do casual chatter afterwards, so you probably miss out on that if you're listening to this after the recording. And also, I do offer to video chat with people one-on-one if they do have stuff they'd like to talk with me personally. So you can also come on Discord and ask me about that as well. So thanks to everybody, and we'll talk with you next week.
Thanks.